Yo, what is going on everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 710 Reviews UK. I hope everyone is doing fucking brilliant. We have another flower review for you people, and this is another one from our boys over at Sourced by Hippies, and this is a little freebie that they sent along with the white Soho that we reviewed the other day. It might have been last week now, fuck knows, I can't remember. We have their Kosher Kush. This is a super famous strain. I don't really need to give it much of an introduction, to be honest. I feel like even if you've not smoked, you've heard of Kosher Kush before. But the branding on the packet is just sort of like a random mylar that they've made, sort of like a superhero themed one. It's pretty cool though, to be fair. It's like an old school sort of like Action Comics one. I do quite like it. It's a Sourced by Hippies on it in a few different areas and shit, but you get different packs depending on whether you get like the 3.5, 7G or whatever. So now that's the branding basically covered. Let's jump straight into the smell. Okay, so I had a few little sniffs of this. It's not overly pungent or anything like that. There's a slight sort of like woody, earthy taste going on. Smell. Like a slight herby vibe going on. But yeah, like it's pretty subtle on the nose, to be honest, which is quite a surprise from an OG. To be fair, they're normally a little bit more pungent than this, but the smell and the looks don't really matter all that much. It's all in the smoke, people. So I'm gonna roll her up into a doobie and we'll see how she's smoking. So the doobie is now rolled. We have it here, as you can see, in the proper Doinks ruby and glass tip. It's absolutely amazing, this one. I really can't stop using it. But how is the Kosher Kush tasting? Okay, so I've smoked a few talks of this now. I can kind of give you a baseline of where I'm at so far. So we'll start off actually first with the way that the nugs looked. They did not look good. They definitely had more of like a sort of like organic sort of look to them. They didn't really sort of seem like to have any sort of like synthetics in them or anything. But they were just really sort of like just quite scraggly. They kind of just look like a typical OG. OGs are never particularly that nice looking, I don't think, and this kind of really follows suit with that. In terms of the taste, you've got like a musky pine note coming through quite strong. Of like a obviously really typical sort of like earthiness as well. But at the moment, it's really nothing crazy. It's not bad, but it's not mind-blowing at the same time. And if I really compare this so far to the white Soho that started off immaculate, this is not really in the same category, I don't think. But I'll smoke it to about the halfway point and I'll come back and let you know. So we're about halfway through the joint now, and I can kind of give you my overall feelings, I think, on the actual smoke. So the flavour profile's changed a little bit. It's got a little bit more of sort of like a slight ashy vibe going on. Like it's not crazy. There's just like a really subtle ashiness there. But you definitely get more of that sort of like piney muskiness as well. I will say it smokes pretty clean. It's not crazy. It's not like a 1010 white ash by any stretch of the imagination, but it's clean enough for sure. And the smoke is pretty enjoyable, to be fair. It's just nothing groundbreaking at the same time. But I'll smoke the rest of the joint and I'll come back and let you know my final thoughts. So we are back. We have smoked the whole joint and everything now. You might have noticed like it's like a few days later now and stuff. There's a lot of shit came up and I wasn't really able to finish the last part of this video. But I can give you my overall thoughts now on how I found the Kosher by Sourced by Hippies. I forgot his name then completely. So we'll start off with sort of the bag appeal of the nugs. Like I said in the review, these were really quite scraggly, really not pretty looking nugs whatsoever. Now I know sort of like your typical Kushes and OGs and stuff like that don't always look all that amazing. These were kind of like on the worst end of it, I would say. I have seen some of the other nugs that other people have gotten from when they've bought like bigger amounts and stuff. This is just a nice little added extra that they gave to me when I bought a half ounce of the white Soho. And their nugs looked a lot nicer and stuff and had more of the OG characteristics and stuff. So I can't fault them too much for it and stuff, but like I do have to mention it. The nugs themselves looked like they were sort of like organically produced. They really didn't like there was any sort of like synthetic stuff in there, none like natural PGRs or anything like that. So from that perspective and stuff, I actually quite like that. Leading on into like the smell, there really wasn't much to talk about there. You kind of got like the typical piney earthy notes and whatnot, but there just really wasn't much going on in terms of the smell, which is quite a surprise given the cross that it is. But sometimes that just happens, you know what I mean? Like it's just It's just the name of the game, I guess. But leading on into the most important part of this review, the smoke. It didn't do too bad. It really wasn't anything groundbreaking, especially when you compare it to the last stuff that we got from him. It was just an okay smoke. So it smokes decently clean. It's not like super crazy white ash or anything like that. It's a little bit more speckly and whatnot. But it's not terrible. You know what I mean? It's perfectly clean enough for the average person for sure. And then sort of terp wise, there's a lot more terps in terms of taste than there is in terms of like smell. You get the piney, earthy, like woodiness going on, especially at the beginning half and stuff. It's really quite pleasant. But as the joint sort of goes along, it does get more of a sort of like ashy sort of taste to it. And it's not overwhelming, but like it's sort of like a background note of like, you'll be taking your talks and it'll be nice and whatnot. And then you've just kind of got this like ashy undertone that comes through. And that definitely became more prevalent towards the end of the joint, which is a real shame because like if it had just kept on with those piney earthy notes, I'd have probably enjoyed it a lot more than I actually did. But yeah, honestly, this was just it was just a bang average smoke, to be honest. Like, it really wasn't anything crazy, but it really wasn't terrible either. It was just smack bang in the middle of a smoke. But you can't always win them, you know what I mean? You ain't always going to have a 10-10 batch, you know what I mean? And you're only ever as good as your last batch. So it's not something that's going to discourage me from getting from these again. I absolutely adored the White Soho. I really want to try some of their other bits, but yeah, this one was a bit of a miss for me, unfortunately, but you know, we move on. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, everyone. We'll be back next time for another episode of 710 Reviews UK.